Welcome to another episode of Insights from the Trenches, a series dedicated to helping ADHD couples thrive by empowering couples with insights from ADHD experts and ADHD peers. I'm Alice, your host. In today's episode, we speak with Matthew Woodget, an ADHD partner, married for 18 years, on his journey of rediscovering ADHD and navigating ADHD medications. So grab a cup of coffee and let's thrive together. Thanks so much for joining us for the interview series. So let's learn a little bit about yourself. So can you share a little bit with the audience about yourself and a little bit more about your ADHD journey?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you to everyone who's listening today. I am a father and a husband. I live in Seattle, despite my accent, which I've worked very hard to keep over the past 20 years since I moved to the United States. I've been told that at 5 years old I was diagnosed with ADHD, but nothing was ever done about it. I came out to the United States 20 years ago with Intel. So I spent the bulk of my career in technology marketing. At Microsoft, I was invited to come and be chief storyteller for one of the product divisions. I had this idea that one day I would like to go outside the hallowed halls of Microsoft and start my own business where I could help lots of different types of people rather than just one corporation.
Help us understand, how did your ADHD journey evolve over time, when you were a child to when you got into a relationship with your wife and then got married afterwards and have kids?
Yeah, it's actually really hard for me to unpack the ADHD aspects of my journey growing up, because I grew up in a really chaotic way. Despite my parents not being in the military, my father's career moved us from the UK to the US, around the US, back to the UK. In effect, I was moving every year for the first 12 years of my life. And I discovered when I got in trouble, I got attention. And so got in trouble a lot. But I think that when I look back on that with hindsight, I think a lot of that was the ADHD as well. I found myself being pulled from one area of focus to another area of focus. I actually even hesitate to use the word distracted, because ADHD is so much more than just being distracted, and the reasons why the distractions happen are so fundamental to how our brains work. But that's what my life was like. I was constantly being pulled 7 ways from Sunday, with moving and new schools and new friends and losing friends and having to move away from friends. And so there was just kind of this big chaotic cocktail, and I didn't actually stop getting in trouble. So I kind of, the chaos engine that had been formed within me, living in chaos, continued, and ended up actually resulting in me effectively getting kicked out of one school and having to go to another school. It was at that new school, which was a private school, discovered that I had dyslexia. And at that point, I suddenly had this kind of awareness that, oh, there's things that are how I'm configured that could be contributing to this. This isn't all necessarily just me making bad choices, me getting in trouble, me not paying attention or whatever. And so it actually was the beginning of this journey where I started to recognize that I could ask for help. I could seek help from other places. I got extra time in exams. I got some extra resources. So having these extra resources became something that was helpful and useful for me. But fast forward to making it through university by the skin of my teeth, bouncing through a bunch of different degrees, followed my father's footsteps into Intel. And, I just worked really hard, burned the candle at both ends, working really hard, throwing myself into it. That was kind of a key thing that I was doing for success and survival at that point.
Said that you were diagnosed when you were very young, but you didn't get a chance to do anything about it. When were you really officially diagnosed with ADHD?
End of 22, I finally got an official diagnosis. And a part of my thought process there was, I've tried everything, right? From productivity systems to exercise and diet to be the best me that I can be. And I'm still bumping into these problems. Maybe it's worthwhile exploring what the medical options are. And so that was one of the thoughts that was going through my head as I started to explore that. And after I got the diagnosis and the conversation with my psychiatrist, I took the opportunity to do that experiment and started to see some very positive results from it. And I'm still on medication, in fact.
Fantastic. Good to hear. Tell us a little bit about your medication journey, because oftentimes people might not take the first medication and it works. How was your journey? Did you got lucky and got the first medication and it worked really well, or did you have to try multiple times?
Yeah, I got really lucky, in fact. Started on a instant release of Adderall and then moved that up to a slightly higher dosage and then went to extended release. And then the extended release didn't really work out for me at the time. And I say at the time for a very specific reason that I'll get to in a second. But I then went back to the instant release and so I'm taking that in the morning, and I still am taking that in the morning and taking that at midday. And the reason why I said what I just said was I'm curious about potentially going back and trying the extended release. And the reason is I never had the major negative reaction to caffeine plus Adderall. I am no longer drinking coffee. Something that I love and hope that I will drink again at some point, but right now I'm on a hiatus, shall we say. And I have noticed an improvement in my sense of well-being, which is hard to quantify and describe. But the reason why I did it, in fact, was in my last checkup with my psychiatrist, we were talking about current experience with the medication and diet, and I had let him know that I'm no longer drinking alcohol, in fact, as well. And we got onto the topic of ADHD and caffeine, and I mentioned that I still had no negative reactions from it, the combination, and he said, "Oh, just make sure you're not taking them at the same time." And I went, "Oh, really? Why is this the first time since December of 22 that we've had this conversation?" And to be fair, maybe he mentioned it and it didn't stick. But I was taking the Adderall in the morning and I was having coffee in the morning at the same time. And it turns out that coffee is acidic and dextroamphetamine is alkali. And so it has a negative impact on the body's absorption. In fact, I was getting less Adderall effectively. And so I noticed that the afternoons were better. And so I haven't been taking caffeine for a month or so. I'll occasionally have a English breakfast tea mid-morning, or sometimes an English black tea in the afternoon. But I felt less drawn to it. And it's been very fascinating, the whole abstination from caffeine for me. So, but I was very lucky, and I'm curious now, thinking back to the fact that I didn't feel that the XR was kicking in properly in the morning, could well have been because of the caffeine that I was drinking. I was still drinking quite a lot of caffeine, because many of us who have ADHD will know that stimulant actually helps calm us down. So yeah, interesting one.
Well, yeah, that is interesting. I didn't know about the caffeine has a negative effect on Adderall. So I'm so glad that you figure it out somehow. It wasn't at the beginning, but at least you figure it out, and now you are getting the full impact of the benefits of Adderall. But share a little bit more about your expectation of that medication. What did you think when you take the ADHD medication? How was it going to make you feel versus what actually happened?
Well, it's actually a really interesting question, because if I cast my mind back to what I was thinking about at the time before I started the medication, the one thing I can remember very clearly was, is this going to change who I am? Is this going to diminish the things about me which I appreciate and enjoy and are the things of value that I bring to the world, whether it's with my personal relationships or my professional, the value that I can deliver professionally. I was worried that it would change who I was, that it would mess with my configuration, and I was 100% focused on monitoring that and seeing what happened. So that was what was going through my head at the time.
So, what exactly did the medication do for you? And did it change you as a person?
So it quietened my mind quite a lot. Did it change me as a person? No and yes. I mean, you can't take a neuroinhibitor, like the way that it modifies dopamine uptake in the neuroreceivers. You can't have that happen in a brain and it not have an effect. And so it had an effect, and it's had it, that effect is change. And so has it changed me? Yes, it has changed me. But how has it changed me? I think that's the bigger question. And I would say that it has made me more patient with myself and with others. It has helped me maintain focus. It's helped me be a bit more thorough and measured in my monitoring of my work. And I already had implemented, prior to medication, I already started doing a bullet journal, which was Ryder Carroll is his name, and I can't remember if he's got ADHD and dyslexia or one or the other or both, but he designed the bullet journal method as a way to help with that executive function, to help kind of offload and outsource a little bit to pen and paper. And I still have challenges with, I have so many ideas, Alice. This is one of the problems. Like, I am just, right now I'm experimenting with this. Just don't even write it down. Just let it go. You've there's so many thoughts that come across your cortex. Let some of them just go, because I end up writing down these, like in the bullet journal, effectively it's a kind of style of to-do list, reams and reams and reams of things, you know, from stuff around the house I need to do, to projects, to different parts of the business, you name it, to creative projects. I'm a photographer. I've been experimenting with AI graphics, and it's just like, so that's not changed. The creativity not changed. If anything, it's been amplified, or the volume has been turned up because of my ability to add a little bit more structure to it. So it's been a really interesting one. I'll give you that.
No, that's good insight. Do you feel like you are accomplishing more with the medication?
Yeah,
Right.
absolutely. In fact, ironically, accomplishing more to the point of working too much in 2023 and compromising my own health. I ended up getting shingles. The reason why I got it was I was burning the candle at both ends, and I was stressed because I was working on a bunch of stuff. I was trying to get a bunch of stuff done, including the Storytelling for Action playbook. Anyway, drove myself into the ground. And ironically, like I said, it was because I was able to focus, able to take that hyper focus that I used to get in fits and starts and channel it and do a better job of hitting pause and coming back to it. Still hard to hit pause. Not going to undersell that. But yeah, it's absolutely made a massive difference with my ability to keep the train on the tracks.
That's good to hear. I hope that you have established some self-care routine so that you don't get burned out and alert yourself not to burn both ends of the handle.
I have, and it's I'm glad you mentioned that. I think it's really important. It's also a really vague thing we hear. Self-care, what does that mean? My therapist says self-care is the sort of thing that you can do any day at any point, which is really easy to just step away and do, right? So, and I've been really bad at this one recently, but I've always enjoyed first-person shooter games like Halo. I've got an Xbox, and just giving myself that half an hour to go and do that. But what I have been doing, which is probably even healthier, is making sure that I'm getting the exercise that I need. But the body's important. There's a relationship between the two. But I like swimming, so I've been swimming. It's a big self-care thing for me. But yoga, I after the health stuff, I ended up getting an Apple Watch. I swore I would always use mechanical watches. I love mechanical watches, but this thing has been great from health perspective, and doing yoga through the Apple Health stuff, and then getting massages as well with a great massage therapist who's so self-care, super important, really hard to quantify and come up with. Going for a walk, drawing a picture, but get outside, get the sun on your head whenever you can. Hard to do in Seattle sometimes during the year, but yeah. What do you do for self-care?
Doing this vlog and these interviewing series because it's a creative outlet. That's really true. But also for me, it's about helping other people to thrive in their marriage. As you know, ADHD marriage are super, super hard. So being able to provide insights and solutions to others that they could use, that is important. I hope that my site can get to a central resource place so that when a couples want to work on their marriage, they can actually come to the site and find courses and other resources that they can take advantage of in the next day or weeks to help them get better. That is what I'm here for. So, but with that said, I have to ask, how did your wife take it when she found out you want to go back and get a diagnosis for ADHD and then get on medication?
She thought it made sense. She knows me very well, and we have for many years operated in an ADHD relationship without ever officially having the description. One of the things that I neglected to mention from my decision to pursue a diagnosis and potential medication was both of our children have ADHD. And we know for certain that one of them has dyslexia, our youngest. So he's got both. He's got the full set there. My wife and I have been through the experience together of getting help for our boys, and that eventually led to them both experimenting with medication. And for our eldest, it wasn't as straight a shot as it was for me, for example. We had to try some different ones for him, and it was a little bit more complicated. Our youngest, it was a little bit easier. And eventually we had them both on medication that was working and dialed in, and we noticed the difference. And we talked about the fact that I have this quasi-diagnosed ADHD, and I just looked at my boys and I looked at the benefits that they were getting from it, and I thought, my goodness, like, what would happen if I had this? And I think for my wife, it became my goodness, I wonder if Matthew might tidy up a little bit more around the house. So she had nothing but support for the process. We talked about it, and like we took, we seek to have a good sense of humor and focus on the big picture as much as possible. I think that helps with the unpredictable nature of ADHD if you can have that. And yeah, but she was very supportive.
No, that's great to hear. How long have you been married?
We have been married 18 years. We just celebrated our 18th anniversary.
Well, congratulations.
So I came to the US 20 years ago, 2004, and I came with Intel, and I came for 6 months. And it was about 2 weeks in to my assignment that I met my now wife. So we just celebrated our 18th anniversary, but we also just celebrated our 20 years of meeting and knowing each other anniversary. So that 6 months ended up so far becoming 20 years. And at this point, we're, happily settled here in Seattle. So
Congratulations. So this is interesting. You talked about how your 2 children have ADHD,
mm-hmm.
and then your wife started thinking about how the medication could potentially help you. When did she realize you potentially had ADHD?
The ADHD thing wasn't something I was even thinking about until my boys were about, my eldest was about 2, and we started to notice some traits that needed addressing, and so that was how we first started to notice it. And at that point, I then started to think about, like, as we started to explore the ADHD aspect, so we had a family psychiatrist to help us be better parents. Effectively, is what we discovered. It is, you're not fixing your child, you're fixing yourself and your parenting style. And through that's when I think I remember my wife getting a little bit irritated with me as we had the initial conversations with the family psychiatrist, because we were talking about my son. Our youngest was still too young for us to be recognizing that there would be anything at that point. We were talking about our eldest, and we were being told about the various behaviors and processing and all this stuff that comes with all the learning that comes with all this. And I was just like, oh my God, that's me. I have that problem. I've always had that. Wait, hold on a second. that then started to, I think, became apparent, shall we say, to my wife that, this makes sense. These dots connect quite obviously.
Yeah, because a lot of couples that I've spoken with also said that I think the idea that one of the spouse has ADHD really kind of get heightened when they find out that their kids has ADHD. But I'm actually really so happy to hear that your kids has a hand in helping you think about taking medication and getting diagnosed again because you're seeing the progress or the changes and improvements that you see in him and seeing that and then be able to connect the dots. I think this is a really hard one to say, oh, maybe this is something that I could experience too.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just very, very glad to hear that. What advice would you give other ADHD individuals who are unsure about starting medication?
Well, first of all, listen to your gut. If you've got concerns about going on medication, but you've also been thinking about going on medication, then you need more information. And don't do anything that you're not ready and comfortable to do. One thing that you may have heard is to explore and maximize all the non-medicated related things that you can do first. And I think that's really important because, and not that I was perfect at it by any stretch of the imagination. Like I said, I've stopped drinking. That was earlier this year. So ask yourself about your lifestyle. Are you getting enough sleep? Have you spoken to a psychologist or a therapist who specializes in ADHD and related learning challenges? Because there's a lot of stuff you can do to help yourself and help your gut feeling and make sure that your gut feeling is. And so, yeah, that would be my advice: is listen to your gut. If your gut's saying don't rush into this yet, then don't rush into it. If your gut is saying I think this could be a big help, then make sure you got the diagnosis, get a psychiatrist, and make sure that you're taking it step by step, and listen to your psychiatrist and make sure that you're understanding the interactions and things like caffeine and stuff like that, because it's not a silver bullet. It's not. We love to have silver bullets in life. I love silver bullets as much as the next person. It's not a silver bullet. It doesn't solve all the problems. It does and can help, but it's one piece of the puzzle. It's not something that you can just take in your life, keep doing everything that you're doing right now as is and take it, because what we're talking about here is a big picture thing anyway. So, and I've learned things along this journey, like the caffeine one over the past month, right? I've continued to modify my life and tweak the dials. And so as you start to consider things like doing anything to get a handle on what you're trying to get a handle on here, that's going to cause change. And medication is another one of those things that's going to force that change. So listen to your gut, take things step by step. You're not alone. You're doing a good job listening to this podcast and accessing Alice's content. Get as much information as you can, get as much support as you can. If you're not getting the support you need at home, find other sources of support. And yeah, it's a journey, and I wish you the absolute best in unlocking it. But listen to your gut.
So let me double click on this. If you can go back in time, any point in time, what would you tell your younger self?
It's really, really difficult. There's so many potential things that you could consider saying that are learnings that you've had. And of course, any time that we can get a learning sooner, potentially the better. it is for us, but some things you can only understand by experiential learning, and some things you can only understand by living and going through your story. I think what I would do is I would say, you're not alone. Seek out support and help in any way that you feel comfortable, and keep pushing the envelope on what you feel comfortable with.
Good advice. Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you.